and Mar Vista has done phenomenally well. So
Yeah.
that's one great thing.
There you go. Okay.
I'm Richard, and I have a property in San Fernando Valley. It's my primary home, and I have a rental property or duplex in Lawndale. I had an apartment building in Long Beach that I sold about 3 years. I always get something out of these meetings every time I come. I've been coming for a couple of years myself, so it's always good just to be here and learn.
Yeah, good.
I'm Rob, and I've been coming for almost a year now, I think, maybe, something like that. And I have a friend who knows Leslie, and he was inspirational, and I started coming to Leslie, and you're inspirational, and so where am I? I'm self-employed, and I'm dealing with that whole hellish deal of trying to show money. And so I think this year, I'm going to do that. That will happen when I get my tax income this year, and it'll show my, I'll be, taking more taxes, paying more taxes, but also showing more money income. So that's what I'm trying to do. And I was looking at like taking my IRA and converting that and doing a self-directed custodial directed thing, and then realized that I had not near enough money to make that really feasible and happen. And so here you go. I'm here, and I'm like
Committed. He's
Committed.
committed. Very committed. That's great.
I'm Aura, and I've been coming with Rob, and we've been talking about buying a small multiplex, maybe in Long Beach, finding a neighborhood that would work for us, where we could maybe have some of the space as an office and a weekend spot as a long-term starter towards doing that again repeatedly. With other buildings as our retirement, basically. It's kind of our retirement plan. So I also learned something when I come here, and I lost a condo in Culver City, which now I'm learning would have sold for probably a little bit more than I bought it 10 years ago. So it took 10 years for that market to bounce back, and I ended up saving quite a lot of money letting it go. When the market crashed and bottomed out in terms of the housing crisis. So I feel that it was heartbreaking at the time, but I made the right decision. My neighbors across the street just sold a 1-bedroom condo for $405,000, fully furnished. The woman's buying with all the furniture. So yeah, it would have taken me 10 years to get that back, and we outgrew it very quickly. So I too had a bad experience, but I learned from it, and there's always more to learn. And so I have some faith that with more education, that maybe the next one will actually be profitable.
Light ahead to that. Yeah. And Joseph.
I've been to a few of these. I know Leslie. I have to speak up. Hello. I've been to a few of these. I met Leslie in the neighborhood. Happenstance. I've been in the process of repairing a few properties, selling a family home right now that my father and I repaired. I run an Airbnb next to Leslie's beach home. And I've been looking for properties for several family members, though I've cut back on that because they have a fear of committing, of actually doing it. There's a lot of talking about, please help me do this, but they just won't do it.
Right.
Because I have several family members with several $1 million worth of real estate that they just don't want to let go of and invest in, but they want to talk about it. So I started looking in the past few months for something for myself to buy. I couldn't afford anything in Los Angeles because it was too expensive, but then I found a partner, and we were thinking about going half on a duplex. That would be incredible, and I was looking at them this weekend, so looking at next steps. So
Perfect.
that
I might take Leslie's advice and just invest in myself, because versus, even though it's immediate family, there's a lot of knee deep when you get involved with family. So
Exactly.
Any partner.
Any part, right.
You do it on your own.
Exactly. There's the agent that I recommend a lot says that 85% of all his sales are because the partnership broke up. Whether it's a marriage, somebody died, it's not always something bad, but something inevitably 85% are because the partnership broke up. So choose wisely. Okay, and now we have Sandy Shaud who's here to speak.
I'm Sandy. I am a mortgage broker by trade. I've paid to date myself. I started in 1986 in loans, back before computers, when I had to go to people's houses and take their loan application, drink their coffee at 8 o'clock at night. And I was 23, and how I started buying real estate was, what my job was to do was to go around and meet realtors to get referrals. You're buying a house, they would refer you to me. And so I was very fortunate to meet this old Greek couple that didn't look like they had two nickels to rub together. You know the ones I'm talking about, right? They drove the crummy car, they had a crummy office in a crummy part of town, and they sold the cheaper properties, but they started giving me some business, and finally the guy said to me, he said, "Do you own anything?" I said, "Oh, I'm right out of college, you know what, this was in upstate New York." And he said, "Well, that's no excuse. How come you don't own anything?" I just started in the mortgage business, so I barely knew what I was doing anyway. And he said, "Let me show you something." And he had a ledger book. Okay, it was about, like 12 inches or 15 inches by this. And he opened it up, and on each page were listed addresses, and he just kept flipping, and he just kept flipping. And he probably had 100 properties.
Wow.
And he said, "You see these? These I own." And he said, "You see this name here? That person lives there, and they pay me rent. And that rent buys the house for me." He said, "So this, these were $40,000 properties back in 1980, whatever, 6, in upstate New York." So he's like, "See, my mortgage is $150, and they pay me $400, and that pays the mortgage, and I keep the difference." And I remember just going, they don't teach you this in college. They didn't teach me this in high school. And I remember thinking, oh my God, I'm buying somebody else's property, paying their rent. And he said, "We have to get you a duplex." And talking about fear, they started showing me around that I asked at work, and I'd been there long enough, and they said, we'll approve you, don't worry. And he showed me a duplex, and it wasn't any great thing. It was a box, nothing fantastic. And he said, what about it? Are you gonna buy it?" And I said, "I don't know, I don't think so." And he said, "Well, that's okay. If you don't want it, I'm gonna buy it." I said, no, I didn't say I didn't want it." So he scared me into buying it. And I remember signing the papers. I remember thinking, oh my God, the roof is gonna cave in. And you know how much it cost me to buy that property? $2,350.
Oh, right.
$2,350, 3.5% down if they hit no closing costs. But back then, right out of college, upstate New York, back in the day when you're making $30,000, that was a lot of money. And I was just like, and I was paying $350 for rent at the time, and I moved in there and I paid $150.
So I just want to say how amazing that you met him, and also how important it is to have people that model what you should do and to guide you and hold your hand. And that's what this group is about. Also to add, Sandy was a member of this group probably since it started with Anna Zimmerman.
Oh, yeah.
And that's how Sandy and I met, was in the first incarnation of the Real Estate Mastermind group, when everybody, just abundance and buying and moving, and remember that?
It was crazy.
Crazy, right, so.
Just having been in the loan business for as long as I have, I never saw anything like what you're talking about, what happened back then. It was ridiculous. We all in the loan business knew it was ridiculous. I remember going to a real estate meeting in some hotel, and there was a guy, and people were running, buying properties in Mississippi. They didn't see them. You didn't even know it was next to a garbage dump. You knew nothing but a snapshot. And people were just forking over money, and I'm like, they have no idea what it looks like. They have no idea what it's like inside. You have no idea. But it was being sold like, don't worry. And then, what happens is, and so the bottom line, I have learned the hard way, which I had never done until that time, is never buy outside of your area. That's the cardinal rule I have learned, is when you buy outside. Now you already have, and I owned a property in Philadelphia, and I had a family there who watched the property for me, but when you're outside of your area, you buy outside of the area, you have no idea what's happening. The amount of fraud that happens in property management is ridiculous. And I have experienced it myself, and I have a friend who managed my property here, and he explained to me, he said, "Sandy," he said, most of them, he said, except for me, are crooked. He said, "I have many, many friends who will manage a property and buy a refrigerator and bill 10 of their clients for the refrigerator. Because how much do you pay I pay like $250, $300 for my property to be managed. The amount of work they have to do, I'm like, how do these people make money?
Always, right.
Right? Everyone's like, well, why are you charging me $255? I wanna pay, it's like, think about it, how are these guys making money? They have to make money somehow. So it's either they'll send people around to find something to do with your property because they have a staff of handymen that need to be busy, or they'll start billing you for stuff that really isn't yours. And if you don't live in the area, you have no clue what's going on.
And by area, you mean like within a.
Within a driving, like I have a property in Long Beach and I was managing it myself for a while. Now I really like my management company, but I was driving down there because I like to know. And they just emailed me about roofs. I'm like, no. Last year I had 3 roofs done. I know that because I did it myself. I said, let me get you the bill and call the guy back out. But and there's more stuff that goes on, but buying in the area is the one thing I've learned over time. And I used to have all my properties right in North Hollywood. I live in Sherman Oaks, North Hollywood, Van Nuys, they were all right around me. And then I'll just talk about my big mistake that I made. I had everything, great, 15-year loans, 10-year, and then I knew the crash was coming, so I sold some stuff, which in hindsight I should never have done. But that's okay, it doesn't matter. And I bought in Texas, and I learned that cheap does not mean good. Cheap doesn't mean good, and it is impossible to manage something from that far away.
And it was a lot of
And it
units,
was
I believe.
huge.
Right.
It was supposed to give me $10,000 a month positive. It ate $10,000 a month. It was a lie. Everything was a lie. In commercial real estate, I went outside of my comfort zone. I went from 2 to 4s, and I had one little 7-unit building in Van Nuys, and I went to this massive commercial thing, and I learned that there's so much fraud in commercial real estate. It's really, you hear the stories about Donald Trump. It's all true. My friends are in it. It's really, you have to have a strong stomach to be in commercial real estate and really know what you're doing to be in it. Big commercial like that.
And how many units was your building in Texas?
148 units.
100, so she went from small buildings to this, but
Yeah.
this is what was happening. There was so much abundance of money and people were just so excited. One guy sold his buildings and he went and he became a developer out in Hemet, and that was a crash. So people were just jumping in different arenas. And I remember sitting probably with Sandy in a room in one of the real estate groups going, what's gonna happen to all of us? Because this is wild. What's gonna happen to all of us? And we watched this happen and that, and it's been interesting.
But the bottom line is, John, was it? Kevin, sorry. What you're doing is all anybody needs to do. You have a duplex, or it's a house with a guest house? Is yours a 2 or?
No, mine,
You have a
the
studio
one
behind
here,
it. Yeah, in Venice.
yeah, it's my house, and then I had a big art studio built in the back.
Right. I've done loans for people for forever. And I can tell you the people that have, because all I see is people's financial situations over and over and over again. The people that have the most money and they're set for retirement are the people who have real estate, and you don't need a whole lot. If you have your 3-unit and you buy 1 more, or if you could get lucky 2 more, you're done. When it's paid off, I'm all about keep your day job and just buy yourself a duplex or another duplex or 4-unit or another, and you'll be set. There's nothing that keeps up with inflation like rent. I was thinking about, I lived in a rental in Brentwood when I first moved here. And I paid $825 a month. It was a 16-unit building. And the lady would come around and collect the money. And that was 20 years ago. And I just looked it up, and the rents are $2,700 now. So when she was collecting 14 some odd thousand, now she's collecting $43,000. All right, probably, maybe not, whatever. What else can you invest in that keeps up with inflation like that? All the tenants bought the building for her, paid it off. You basically have to come in with the down payment. You have to come in with the down payment, and like you have going on now, your tenants will buy your property for you. Then in 15, 20, 30 years, however long it takes you to pay it off, you sit back and collect.
And when you went from your first duplex to your next, did you utilize leverage to do that?
I'm not a big, the whole leverage thing came about. I'm not, I started feeling kind of like an idiot back then because I was like, why am I buying so many properties? Whenever I had money, I would buy another 2-unit, and that's pretty much
And
what
just
I
keep
did.
paying down the
Yeah,
existing
I'm a
property.
big buy it, pay it off, keep it. That's it. I'm a big pay it off. I'm not I'm not a refi fan, and that's what I do for a living. When people call me for refis, I'm like, sure, can I put you on a 15? But I'm from the East Coast. And in the East Coast, you know, you're kind of like, get it and pay it off. But a lot of people here in California live on cash flow. So that's a mentality here that's just different than mine. They just want to keep refining and refining and refining, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's just a different mentality than I have. I want to pay my building in Long Beach off and collect. You know, when I got my building in Long Beach, the rents were $300 a month. Now each unit, it was like $3,500. Now they're $9,000. So in 20 years, tell me what they're going to be. So when I have it paid off in the next 15 years, if it's 9 now, let's just pretend it's 15 then, conservatively. I don't know.
So that means after your 3.5% purchase in upstate New York, you were doing 30% down payments on everything.
I was doing, yeah, because I was buying I was buying nominal. Yeah. So if you don't own anything, you can buy your first building, your first duplex. You can buy FHA 3.5% down. So I just helped a guy who was he's a server downtown at LA Live. Okay, so he waits tables, but luckily he gets a W-2. Here's the bottom line, it's very expensive here. He was willing to do whatever it took to get started. He said, I will live anywhere. I will live in Reseda, Long Beach, downtown LA. I don't care where I have to move to get a piece of property. And he did. He finally found one. It took forever. It was very frustrating. Nobody wants to take your offer in multiple offers right now with 3.5% down when other people are coming in with 50. I get it. As a seller, I probably wouldn't want to either. But he finally got something in Long Beach, right on Broadway, you know, in Alamitos Beach.
It's a duplex? Or
It's a little duplex, and he paid $1,500 in rent downtown LA, and he now pays $1,500 to live there. It cost him $14,000 all in, everything. And that's it. And the best thing is he's a vet. So what I said to him now is you need 1 year history of owning. If anyone here is a veteran or anyone listening is a veteran, you can buy 0 down 4 units, but you need a history of owning rental property. So what I said to him is we're going to get you a duplex first. Then in a year, when you have a history, we're going to buy you 4 units, 0 down. And now you're going to have 6 units and you're done. If you want to do more, you can, but you don't have to get crazy with this stuff. You can just create a nice little retirement for yourself.
And wait.
You just wait.
just
You just wait. He can keep waiting tables. He loves to travel, live your life, do your thing. I think when it
This
gets
is very-
fancy,
This is very different from what you say though.
No, I'm on buy and hold, just like Sandy is.
But you're
But
all about
she's more into
financing
leveraging.
and-
I built my portfolio using leverage.
Mhm.
And she built her portfolio using just having new cash and buying a
I
building.
had a job. You do this, you don't
Well,
work.
I re-allotted stock money into
Right.
real estate. So
She
yes,
made this her job.
right.
Right.
But yes,
Right.
so I utilize leverage. I can't see, I can sort of think I just pay mortgages till I'm in the ground.
Yeah.
Like for me, it's just you own real estate, you pay a mortgage. So that's how I just believe and think. But what's I think is fabulous about tonight is you hear both of us are doing great. We both buy and hold, but we have different ways of getting there. So
But you
What-
also kind of like topped out, like you're not looking to buy more now, right?
I don't need to buy more, and I would say Sandy probably doesn't need to buy more. And I stopped in 2010 was my last investment property, and I don't know when you stopped investing or
I
if
would
you
buy
have.
probably one more, but after I had so many properties at one point, I don't know how many of you are USM people, but okay. Ron always says, be careful what you create. We all met it, yeah. He says, be careful what you create, because I remember I just went to do my taxes, late, and I'm like, this is so easy now. I used to go with boxes from all these properties and receipts and so much, and I'm like, this is so much easier, so much less, for me, less worry, less headache. I have this, and I have a house I live in with a guest house in the back that I rent out, and I know what's going on, and it got to be so many, I didn't know what was happening. And that's why I think I like to keep it simple now and I'm not an extravagant person,
How many do you own now?
just my building in Long Beach and mine.
And her Long Beach is 8 units, right?
9,
9 units. And when did you buy that?
because I sold 10 years ago.
But do you,
It's the Dallas building that took 3 of my properties and ate all my money.
Right. So you
Ate all my
bought
money.
the Long
I
Beach.
sold it at less than what I paid for it.
But lawsuits and things for how long? long time.
Oh, it was, the city was, basically what happened in Dallas, and this is just getting into it. The guy next door wanted my property because he wanted to own a whole city block. And he knew that I didn't live there. And he knew how to get a property from somebody in distress, and he knew how to create distress in my property.
Oh.
And I remember I went to my friend, my Persian friend, and he said, I'll tell you exactly what this guy's doing to you. And he said, I have a friend who used to drive over. He said, I knew this guy who used to drive. He wasn't his friend. He said he used to drive around at night to mom and pop gas stations. This other guy. He said he'd test the soil, and when he'd find, soil that was a problem, he'd send it into the EPA or whatever. And they'd come in on these little mom and pop gas stations and come down on them and have to clean it up. These people didn't have money. So this guy would wait 2 weeks or so, and then he'd knock on the door and say, I'm looking to buy a property. And they'd be like, oh, thank God. And he said, oh, but wait, look at this paperwork. Oh, no, you're in trouble with the EPA. Ooh, I can't pay that much for. So that's what this guy was doing to me, but not with toxic soil. He went through my building, and in hindsight, I realized what he was doing. He wanted to buy it. I thought, okay, I'll sell it. And I let him go through, and they said, my management said, Sandy, he was here for 2 days, took down notes of everything. One of the people told me who worked there that he was offering to pay them to do things to let him in to do stuff to the building. I would have garbage dumped on my property every day. In Dallas, you could call the city and they'd be out there in 10 seconds writing you up a citation for garbage dumped on the property. And you can't control that from here. And how many times are you gonna fly down there to, so he called the city on me, and I had passed the city inspection, and then I get this call from the city. They're like, there's 20 people combing your property right now. They're like, city people are all over your property because he had given them notes on everything he found.
Oh my gosh.
And there was no way I could stop it. I had to fly down there, then they were suing me. I'm like, what are you suing me for? I don't understand what I'm being sued for. What did I do? But this is commercial real estate. And that was my thing, was I got out of what I knew. And if I had stuck with my 2 and 4 units, I'd be sitting with a bunch of paid off property right now.
But you own 9 units, so you do own a commercial building, and that's been okay.
But that's
and
a small,
fine.
that's not a massive, that's a small little, that I'm down the street. If somebody started to do something crazy like that here, I'd be all over them because I live here.
So I have a question. How did you bounce back from such a nightmare in Dallas? How did you mentally get over it and say, I'm still in for real estate? Did you just change your
Well,
way
I know
of
real
investing?
estate is great. I got out of my comfort zone. If I had stayed with my 2 to 4 units and didn't try to get fancy and go outside of my comfort zone, because I just don't have the stomach for that. Some people do, and I just don't have the stomach for that, or the wallet for that. Like some people who have $10-20 million, they can say, screw you, and get lawyers and, come back at this guy or fight back. And, I just said, uncle, and I let it go, and I sold it, but I wouldn't sell it to him. And he was begging me to I'm like, oh, I'm still thinking about it while I was closing with somebody else. But so
Say la vie.
the realtors were like, he didn't do anything. I'm like, I beg to differ. I'm just not selling to him.
Right.
But anyway, the bottom line is, from what I've experienced, is I just did a loan for 2 couples, both retired, both living on Social Security. And I'm sure some people have looked into how much you get, or I just know it because I do loans for people, and maybe people are making $1,500 a month, $2,000 a month. What can you do with that? Nothing.
It's not enough.
No. So one couple has Social Security, and they came to me for a refi. And I don't like really doing reverse mortgages, but it's a necessary thing right now. And I said to him, why don't you get on a reverse mortgage? Because this way you guys won't have a mortgage payment. All a reverse mortgage does is make it so you don't have a payment, but the mortgage is still there and it's actually growing. And I said, then your Social Security, can support you. No, we're okay. We just want to refi and get our rate down. I said, all right, I did it. And they have no money at the end of the month to do anything. No dinners out, no nothing. And if one of them passes away, right, now your income's in half. You don't get both Social Securities. So then at that point, I don't know what happens to the other one, okay? I had another couple that I did a refi at the same time. They had the same situation, mortgage on their property, but they had one other property, single family, that they rented out that they own free and clear. That was $3,000 more a month. That $3,000 a month is saving them. That is, they can go out to dinner. That is, they can put gas in the car. That is, they can have a weekend away, or if something bad happens, they can have it done. It's just one extra property. And their property they live in isn't free and clear. So it doesn't need to get crazy, you know? And I think unless you're trying to do this for a living, see, my experience, I think real estate takes time. It takes a long time. I don't know. I mean, you're one of the few people who had cash, who could move the cash from here into real estate to create a living off of it. Most people do it very, very slowly over time.
So do you like have a management company that kind of manages? Do you believe in that kind of thing for first time people that are buying some kind of a unit
I
like
wouldn't.
that? Or
What I would do,
not so much?
if I don't, where do you guys live now? If you're
So,
together? Yeah.
no, she lives in Culver City and I live in Eagle Rock.
Well, we're a couple,
Okay.
but we have
Yes, we're a
kids in
couple.
2 different districts, and so we're committed to getting our kids through high school. And then basically we want to get a property. I'm about to get an inheritance of about $350,000. And I want to do something with it. I don't want to just
Right.
have cash sitting
Right.
somewhere. And he's got the business, so that's why, and we want to have a contract. We want to have it written in writing so everything's clear.
A partnership.
But it's, you know, it's a long-term plan for sure.
But you
And-
both rent.
Yes, we both rent
Yes.
right
Right.
now, and we're both in good rental situations.
Okay.
And
And I had a house, but I got divorced, and so
Right.
my ex got
Right.
that, so that was kind of financially
Right.
devastating.
Divorce doesn't ever make anybody richer. It takes one household.
I think it worked
It
out
takes
for
one
her,
household and cuts
But
it
that's
in
okay,
half.
so that's
Yeah.
all right, it's
Right.
what it is, that's fine.
I did see a show on PBS with Sue Zorman, and she recommended that if you have property and you have anyone that you want to leave it to, that you create, I forgot, I wrote it down, but it's a will, that it's a
Trust.
living will trust or something
Yeah.
like that.
Living trust, yeah.
Yeah, because if you do, and you pass, your heirs get it immediately.
Yes.
If you don't, it can take 10 years and $10,000 for them to process. Plus they have to go through probate and they have to go through a whole mess. So I think that that's really an important piece. If anybody has anyone they want to leave their property to know that.
Yes.
It's different in different states, actually, I think, because my mother lives in Maine and she has a house, and I made her, like, you need a living trust, you need a living trust. She went to the lawyer, or to the, lawyer, I guess, who said, no, actually, in this state, you don't. So.
Yeah,
Well, for
that's,
California, you do.
you need lawyer, it's best to just get a lawyer. You know, I do loans, I don't, but I can just tell you how to, if you wanted to buy something 3.5% down. But for anybody starting, I always try when realtors bring me somebody who wants to buy something and they can only afford a condo, I'm like, forget the condo. Let's buy you a house with a guest house or a duplex. Because the condo, first of all, when the market crashes here, which it does, it's just the way it works here. So just expect it. It goes up, it goes down, it goes up, it goes down, it goes up, it goes down. I'm from Philadelphia and it doesn't do that. It just goes like this. In Kansas, it doesn't do this. It's just the nature of the business here. And now with more international clients, and now with money, and now with internet and people able to move their money around. I mean, there was an article today about more Chinese money coming in. So now you're not competing with people here. You're also competing with people from China and India and other places that are coming here with all their money. And so it's expensive here. You know what I mean? It pushes up the values of the property.
But how much was the duplex that the couple just bought in Long Beach?
The guy in Long Beach, it was $450.
Okay.
Now it's
And-
tiny. It's a
Right.
tiny little duplex.
Right, but and then Kevin found a place in the
Yes.
700.
You have to be willing
There's
to go.
places in between.
Yes.
Right, and so there's options, but it's not necessarily where you want to live.
But
Of course.
what about if you don't want to live there? If you're completely
Then it's
not.
20 or 25% down.
Right.
Right.
And then you
That's
want to
okay.
get more units, right? So that it'll cash flow. I mean, why?
I mean,
would-
if you just want to invest money in a property, yeah,
Then it doesn't really make sense to get a duplex, does it?
it just depends. No,
You
you
mean
could buy a
more
4-unit, a 5-unit, you can get commercials of 5. Residential's 1 to 4, commercials 5 and over.
Right, but a duplex is probably not going to cash flow if you're not living in it, right?
True, unless you
Yeah.
put more down, which it is tough, 40% or 50% you'd cash flow. So you can always get something to cash flow, you just have to put more down. And certain people in other financial situations will put more down because they just want to park money in real estate, and looking for the appreciation, not necessarily the cash flow.
And my duplex cash flows.
Yeah,
But
so
you bought it
I
when?
bought in 2006, just right at the heights, so.
Right.
Did it cash flow at the beginning?
It did, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but see, that's, we're kind of bouncing all over, but that's the way to buy, is if it cash flows at the time that you're buying it, that's fine. And to me, you buy and you let it sit, because the rents are going to go up over time. Now they're saying that, you know, when you look around, they're building apartments everywhere. It's gonna come to the point, there was just an article today, that rents are starting to go down, because it's a supply and demand thing. But if you buy something conservatively, if you buy it and it's cash flowing, and you know you can reduce the rent some and it'll still cash flow, then you buy it and you hold on to it.
But I would say too, though, this basic type of unit that I owned, a 1960s units, 50 units, or 50s,
Right.
70s, 80s, they're not making those anymore. The buildings that they're building now are luxury units with jacuzzis and underground parking. So I really believe these 60s, 50s, yes, these 50s and 60s
Ridiculous.
buildings are a
Can't believe
market
people pay for it.
that is only gonna go up, because it's a finite resource and they're not getting reproduced.
We were
So-
down at the Arts District in downtown Los Angeles,
Yes.
and looking at those apartment
Oh, yeah.
complexes,
Right.
and they're jaw-droppingly expensive for small little, you know.
Right.
So you're
cities.
like, why is it called the Artist District? Because no artists can live down there. So-
All the artists were pushed
Do you
out
wanna
this
ask your
year.
question?
Special artists.
Yeah, got a question from David.
Online.
He says, it sounds great in theory to pay a little down on a duplex, but I've been told by a lender recently that as a loan approaches 850 to $1 million,
Yeah.
common for a nice duplex in the Bay Area,
Yeah.
you will need a second mortgage. Is that true?
Yeah, it's only, there's only up to, I don't have my loan guidelines here with me now, but it only goes up to certain dollar amounts, 3.5%
It meaning
down.
the FAA.
FHA,
FHA.
625.5 for one unit, the second unit's like 800, 3 units, and then 4 units. Now, we're gonna get into guidelines here, and it's, you know, but 4 units is hard to do, because on FHA, the 4 units have to cash flow on their own, and they don't in California. In San Francisco's a whole separate animal. It's very expensive there, and
And similar to here, what I found out is doing more than 2 units is very difficult with that 3.5% down.
right.
Because
Right.
things just are too
Right.
expensive.
See, these are one-offs that if he wants to talk to me, like, this is what I do, is I talk to people and I say, okay, let's figure out a plan for you, like the guy who had a little bit of money down, and I tried to figure out a plan for him to get the 2 unit, then the 4 unit, you know, with as little money down as possible. But that's where, and again, I get a lot of calls from people and they're like, oh, I don't live on the west side, and, you know, I'm like, we don't qualify for the west side. You gotta get in your car and you've either gotta go to mid-cities or the valley. Oh my God, I had a valley. And it's like, but you know what? You're gonna be sitting here 20 years from now crying that you weren't willing to move somewhere else. You will have nothing to your name. And you read article after article, and the same is true in San Francisco of people being kicked out of these rent-controlled apartments. And I think rent control doesn't do people a service, because it lulls them into a false sense of security. It doesn't get them out, and it doesn't get them buying. They think they're gonna be able to stay there forever like they own it, and then they're indignant when somebody comes and kicks them out. It's like, you don't own the building, you don't own it, you don't get to say anything, you have no say.
Right.
Get paid to leave.
Yeah, but in San Francisco, some of them are getting kicked out. Like, people wanted, this family wanted to buy a triplex downtown, and each of them wanted to live, the brother and his wife, the parents and the other family member all wanted to live in one of the units. Sorry. And so the people are protesting that they're kicking them out. I'm like, you don't own it.
Right.
No, but
Yeah,
if it's under
even-
rent control, there's relocation.
Well,
assistance.
yes.
It's
but
all,
there's-
everything is town by town, city by city.
But if
Santa
you're the
Monica's
owner-
awful, but it's different in LA, and it's different, it's all different.
Yeah, and if you're the owner, even in the most strictly rent control places, if you're the owner and you want to live there, you can kick them out.
But, and you do, but
Los
I,
Angeles
In New
is
York, this guy took
$10,000.
this,
yes, but 10,000, if you're a renter and you get kicked out and paid 10,000,
not if you're owner occupying.
it's not, oh,
Well,
what?
yeah.
But if you do get paid to move out, it's low, it's pennies for the owner of a building, because they're gonna make that much money.
I
pretty
understand
quickly.
that, it's so, if somebody buys a building and they would actually wish to evict the people there, yes, it's another $10,000, it's a hassle, but.
Yes,
All I'm saying is, for the person being evicted, okay, I have a friend now who's paying like $1,000 a month living in Santa Monica. I'm like, good luck to you. You know, when you're 70 years old and they give you 10 grand, what are you gonna do with that? I said, and you're living on 2,000 Social Security and you get your $10,000 in 20 years, how much is rent gonna be?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like you have nothing. You have absolutely nothing for yourself. You're gonna have to move up to somewhere and seriously live in a trailer, or now you see people living in trailers all over town.
Or on the
You know, so it's like you have to be willing in a town like this. If this was Kansas City or Philadelphia or somewhere, it'd be very affordable and you could probably live where you wanted to live. But in LA, you got to pick up and move to Hawthorne, or you've got to move to Mid City, or if you haven't started already, or you don't have a pile of money, you've got to. And these are, everybody's got a different situation. You know, you're fine where you are and you just want to invest. But if we're just talking about buying your first property with as little money down as possible, you have to be willing to go where it makes sense and it's affordable and the loan works for that area.
Doesn't the house have to qualify to be in a certain sector to get the 3.5%?
No. FHA's been around forever. People think it's some first-time home buyer thing. No, it's not.
But did you say that 3.5% down is only for a first-time home buyer?
No,
No.
absolutely not.
Well, that's good to know.
Everybody keeps saying first-time, forget about first-time home buyer.
Yeah,
There's
but
no
it's
special
owner
deal.
Federal housing
It's
authority.
owner occupied.
Right, which you buy a duplex and live in.
Now, there's no free lunch. You're putting 3.5% down instead of 10 or 20. They want something for it. The rate's actually lower, but they want mortgage insurance from you, 2 different kinds. Okay, but for this guy in Long Beach who just bought Long Beach, he was paying $1,500 in rent, and even with all the mortgage insurances, he's paying $1,500 and he owns the place.
Why would the rate be lower?
It just is. The rate's 3 on an FHA, and it's like 3, you know, just in general 3.5 on a conventional.
So I have a question. When you made your decision when the market was crashing, like, is there a certain time, like, what was your thinking, or is there a certain time?
In hindsight, I would never sell. I just wouldn't sell it again.
Okay.
I would just
It's
hold on.
probably-
You just hold on.
It's probably lower because of the mortgage insurance. It's a lower risk, I would guess, and so you get.
No, it's
better
just,
rates.
it's a program that's to help people buy homes. They're trying to make it affordable for people to buy homes
It's
because,
called social.
because,
Call
but let
back.
me explain something to you.
What
When
did
you go
say?
into Home Depot after the
Socialism.
crash, do you know how many people are out of jobs because the real estate market crashed? All the jobs that are lost because of it. And it's not just mortgage and title and realtors. It's the guy in Home Depot selling paint. It affects everything. And every one job that's lost affects 2 or 3 other people. It makes 2 or 3 other jobs lose. So real estate is the one thing, home ownership is the one thing, you buy new lights, you redo the floors, that creates jobs and spending. It makes people spend money when they own property.
David's in Oakland, by the way, and he also asks for advice for rent control areas when there is a current tenant living in one unit, and we kind of got into that already.
Oh, what about it? First of all, I hate rent control, and that's why I buy in Long Beach, because I can't stand having the government tell me if I got a crazy who's giving me a headache, I want him out.
Yeah, it's part of
Right.
why we bought in Hawthorne
Right.
as well. Yeah.
Right. But when you buy in rent control, you have to deal with it, and it's town by town. So I don't know what the rules are in Oakland.
But I would
Do
say,
you know what
like,
I mean?
what,
It's city by city.
what Sandy's done, and I've done, you avoid
I
a
avoid
rent
it.
controlled area.
I've
You-
never had a
and
rent
as
control
you did,
property.
Kevin did as well. He looked, and
Can't
there were
stand it.
great deals in rent controlled buildings, but he just chose not to do that. So,
Yeah.
When you purchase, do you inherit like the rent control?
the building is rent controlled,
You
and
inherit
whoever
the
owns
tenants.
it, you inherit it.
Oh, it
Yes.
has to do with the city it's in, or the.
Exactly, when it was built mostly, because
when it was.
like this building, this is an interesting building. What you're sitting in is a duplex on the back of the property that was built in '89, so it's not rent controlled. The front unit was built in 1920, and it is rent controlled. So you can have properties that are split as well, which this is one of those.
This is why you need a realtor. I would never buy a property, and I am a licensed realtor, and I use realtors because I'm not a realtor by profession. I would never buy a property without a real estate agent, because this is what they'll do for you. They're going to help you with all of this. They're going to tell you, you know what, there's a power plant 2 blocks away. Do you want to live 2 blocks? You know, they're going to point all of this stuff out to you that you're not thinking about. And I just have an affinity for real estate agents because my mother is still one at 81 years old. And, you know, I've watched her help her clients. She doesn't do investment property, but I just would never do it without a realtor.
And also,
They're going to help you with all of that. What's the rent control law? What's the deal here?
and somebody referred, not just somebody that you find, really somebody that's referred by somebody, because people
Yeah.
have said, oh, I went to an open house and I got somebody.
No,
And they make it an art of not telling you about the power plant two blocks away.
you don't want to.
So always get a referral, and this comes back to the thing about having a strong team. And that's why I say too, Sandy's really great. Look at her working with this Vietnam vet, or not Vietnam, I don't know, the vet, and helping them even on their next purchase. It's like getting people who track with you and stay from one property to the next and mentor you, and through the hard times say, hang in there, hold the building, whatever, get you through it. So I
Right.
think you're a good team person for people to
Right,
work
right.
with as well.
And you don't have to, these seminars go on all the time, run to the back of the room, $5,000 for our system. You don't need that system. You find a realtor like, you've had who is, who also owns property. It's best to work with people who own property because they can help you with that. They understand what it is. They've managed it. They know what comes about. And owning property is, probably anybody here can attest. There's going to be the times where there's a tenant who does something weird or funky and drives you crazy for 2 months. And, you're like, oh, I just want to get rid of this building, but then you're like, calm down and just hang in there. There's no free lunch to anything. But when you're 60 years old and you're collecting money, you've long forgot about that guy from 20 years ago who did something weird and gave you agita.
My building just got bought, and I think the management company are the owners, even though they're not saying they are, but they raised the rent for most of the tenants by $200.
The 3.5%.
But some of a couple of the tenants, they've raised their rent by $600, and I feel like they're trying to push them out, but there's no rhyme or reason.
Are you rent controlled?
No.
Oh, well then, yeah, you can, if you're not rent controlled, I can give you a notice and say it's $2,000 more. Yes. That's what
They can do whatever they want,
Exactly.
right? To
That's
whoever
exactly.
they want, and whatever the unit is, it doesn't have to be bigger or
This is
smaller.
why when you don't own, you have no control, because if I want you out, I'm getting you out.
Yeah.
There was a guy in New York who took the stairs down in the building to get the last remaining tenants down. Middle of the night, this is commercial real estate. They took out the stairs, called the city. City came in and said, there's no stairs, you people have to move out, it's not safe. Oh.
So
I'm telling you, the stuff that goes on in commercial real estate it's like,
That's insane.
but I want you out and you won't leave and you won't take my offer and I want to condo the building. I'm gonna do whatever I have to do to get you out. I want you gone.
The new owner might be seeing if he can get away with it before he raises the rent on you guys even
But
higher.
you might, if they don't move out, you can have to do a whole eviction thing. They don't necessarily.
Where, in New York?
Here, no,
Oh.
in Long Beach.
There are people who know
Yeah,
how to get
give
people
someone-
out of buildings, there's people who know how, there's people that specialize in, give me your rent controlled building and I'll get everybody out of it.
Oh,
Like,
Oh,
there's
God.
people that do that, right? So anyway, there's.
Yeah.
But I mean,
I've been offered that. I have my friend who said, you want me to take care of it for you? I said, what are you gonna do? He said, you don't need to know. And I said, no. I do need to know. I said, you tell me. He said, I got a guy. And I said, I need to know what is being done, because he said, no. And I said, forget it. I'll just do it myself. I'll wait the 3 months to evict him. I said, I don't need something going on.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
some guy's leg got broken and I didn't know about it.
Vinny taking care of it.
Exactly, but that's,
It's out there, right?
let me tell you what my friend in Connecticut used to do. He had units, and when somebody, when he wanted somebody out or they didn't pay the rent or whatever, he would go during the day when they were at work and he'd take all their stuff and put it in the yard and change the locks on the door. And they'd come home and they'd call him and scream and yell. He goes, I'm sorry, you need to slow down. I don't know what you're saying. What's going on? And they're like, oh, my stuff is out in the yard. And he'd say, I've been at work all day. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Oh my God.
You know what I mean? And he said they knew I was crazy enough that they just picked up their stuff and left.
Oh my.
Because he said, if I'm going to do that and not follow the rules, I don't think you could do that today with cameras and stuff, but this is what he would do.
Oh my God.
So do you, people are talking about Compton now and talking about
Yeah,
Inglewood
sure.
as well, and I know Kevin is in Bell Garden, right?
Hawthorne. Yeah.
Hawthorne, all right, so.
Inglewood, great.
Are you
no rent
guys,
control.
and I know Leslie's big on Long Beach, you know what I mean, but somebody I was talking to was saying you really want to have it as close as you can to you, and I'm like, well, there's nothing close to me in Eagle Rock, really, so to speak, that I know of, and.
Downtown? Just south of downtown, USC?
Yeah, but that's rent controlled, I believe, down there. But no, well, that's part of like Compton area, that I'm getting to that area. So do you have any comments on kind of like up and coming Compton or up and coming?
That would be a question for Rick, who's the agent
Yeah, the
completely in that
realtors.
area. And
Right.
I went into South Central, which is mostly rent controlled, but there's unincorporated part of the city. And I said, I'm only buying a non-rent control. And I found the pocket and I found a great triplex, 3 separate houses on a property. And so I really mind it and really look. So there are areas that are not my rent controlled, but you have to work it. You have to work with people that know the area, people like Sandy that can get the loan through. It's a specialized deal to go into some of those areas.
That property though is somewhat like rent control because it's a Section 8 property, so aren't you capped?
It's not, I choose to do Section 8, so I have chosen to let some tenants be in there, but I can give them 60-day notice.
That's
and they
a
have to go.
personal thing, whether you take Section 8. It's not by the city saying this property is Section 8. Section 8 is just a way that you know you're going to get paid rent because the people are low income and the government is paying part of their rent, so it actually comes right into your bank account. But it has nothing to do with the city
And
a lot of landlords now, there was an article, aren't taking it anymore, so they're having a really hard time finding places for people because rents are up so high.
And it's interesting, I have somebody who's put an application in today, and my
Really
management
bad.
company is saying, let's stay away from it because it's a disabled person, and if we start the dialogue, then we're obligated and we could get in. There's just lawyers that chase around people like that, and they can come in and say you discriminated and didn't take them. So, and the building is not Section 8. I don't have anybody that's Section 8. So we're just coming back and saying, I'm sorry, the owner doesn't do Section 8. But that doesn't seem like the right way to be. And the person sounded like an interesting tenant and I was interested, but I also was told it's just a minefield of trying to speak with them about, and I didn't know they're disabled. So if Section 8 accepts my unit and the person accepts my unit, they could come in and say, now you need to build a wheelchair ramp, now you need to put in handrails. And I couldn't even call to ask that because they said, no, you're going to open it up and it could be discrimination.
Wow.
So it's really too bad because it probably would have been a very long-term tenant. I have other Section 8 people, they're fabulous, but I'm getting now to
Why
pull.
you're obligated as the owner to make it handicapped?
I don't know, but I couldn't even call and ask. I said, can you ask them
Probably.
if I rent
Ask
to
the
them?
tenant, ask the potential tenant, or
Right, I wanted to
look into
ask
the law?
the potential tenant, but the management company just said, even us asking the tenant, if I said, when can they move in? And they said, we're afraid to ask the tenant when they can move in. I said, we ask everyone when they're gonna move in. We don't wanna do it with the Section 8. It's called, then you're talking about leasing. They're gonna think you're going down that road. There's lawyers that follow the people like this. So I'm advised not to do it.
How did they know they were disabled?
Well, because somehow lawyers, personal injury lawyers, or that if you get evicted,
No, I mean your management company.
because they come to us and say, will you accept us as a Section 8 renter?
Oh, they would.
Yes, when they're gonna put the application in, will you accept it,
Oh,
Section 8? And I get asked, and I said, sounds good to me, but am I gonna have to alter the unit? And can they move in early? And the management company said, we're too afraid to ask.
It's interesting because it causes discrimination.
Yeah.
It's exactly the
Look,
opposite.
there is
of
just
what is
discrimination
I
everywhere.
know.
It's when I was at GE.
Management company discriminated.
When I was at GE,
Yeah,
they put us through a class that proved that everybody discriminates. And it's
Yeah, of
just
course.
the bottom line because everybody's comfortable with what they know. And, I remember I had a loan back in the day that was turned down by, it's just cultural, turned down by a Latino underwriter. And this was because the borrower was a young Persian guy who said he made $250 a year. In her mind, she couldn't quantify, because it was a no-income loan, that a 23-year-old Persian guy could make $250 a year. Now, if you're Persian, that's no problem for you, right? Are you? No. So, and I said, give it to the Persian underwriter. And if she declines it, that's fine. She approved it like that. She goes, oh, of course, no problem. So it's just because this lady whose personal experience of her sister being on welfare and all couldn't quantify that a young guy. But I know so many Persians, and I have so many Persian friends who start their kids off in business and give them $1 million to start off a business, and they are making $200,000, $300,000 at 23 years old. So it just proves over and over again in the lending business, that.
We shall be Persian.
No, but I mean, everything is cultural, right? Like the Korean nail salons, they all help each other start. It's just everything is cultural. And so there's just this, if you want to call it discrimination, it's just everybody's got their own cultural knowledge of where you come from. And sometimes, you don't mean to discriminate, but you do.
I think Joseph was next.
Speaking of teams, you're against partners.
I mean, personally, I've just not seen it go well. And I wouldn't want to. I just don't want to because.
There hasn't been a need to.
No, there never was a need to. And I just like to do things by myself and don't want to be told what to do and when to do it and you can't do this or I see people get, like Leslie was saying, they get in fights and then it just, when you mix money and friends or family, it gets very difficult.
I had a partner in Long Beach in the apartment building, and everything was great at first. We did everything together. We went down there together. We looked at the building. About 4 years into the process, she kind of just disappeared from the scene, and pretty much I'm doing all the work.
Right.
I'm the one getting all the letters from the city for cleanup. I'm the one getting sued for a tenant because they can't live in the place because they think it's infested. And I'm going, you need to come with me. And she's, no, you're the one that got the letter. So, but you're my partner. We're joint tenants in common, right?
Yeah.
So it was like, finally I just had it. That's why I sold it, because I just couldn't keep up with it anymore, and I wasn't getting any support from the other side. That was costing me a fortune. It's all coming out of my pocket.
And then it gets nasty with lawyers. It's all about belief systems. Your belief system is one thing, their belief system is another. How much is enough money? How much is enough rent? Oh, I think this is fine. Well, I disagree. I don't like that guy. I do like that guy.
And we're still friends today.
Yeah.
And we still hang out together from time to time, but I can tell there's an underlying tension from my partner of resentment.
Was the sale bad?
The sale we didn't make. We thought we'd make millions. We didn't make millions. We got our money back. So, it's kind of like, I think there was that tension of that this was going to be a big retirement opportunity and they wouldn't have to do anything.
Was your property, say, 4 units and you split all of them?
Yeah,
Or
but
did
you want to talk to me about it?
It was 8
Did you own
units.
2 or
It
you
was
own
8
4
units,
and she
no, they were
owned 4?
joint tenants in common, so it was 50-50 on the
Everything.
How many units was it?
8
In Long Beach.
on Cherry around 11th Avenue.
I'm at 10th and Cherry. I
Yeah,
know where you are.
and, it was a B neighborhood, wasn't like the greatest thing, but when we first bought it, the lady that owned it, she didn't have any leases with any of the tenants. She had no lease agreements at all. She would just say, look, pay me when you can, pay me whatever you can. So the tenants thought it was still gonna be the same arrangement with us. when we
See?
bought it. So we had to take everybody out. Okay, time to move. Rent's coming up. Here's a lease. You need to put that in. And then we got a property management company that wasn't really reputable. They were doing all kinds of stuff just to make it look like it was rented and was okay. But after I fired them, I found out everybody that was in there were like deadbeats or they were meth addicts, and I had to evict 3 people, and then the new management company wanted to spend all kinds of money to convert each unit. And then the city of Long Beach starts showing up, and they want me to fix the drain pipe on the back, and their sofa's in the alley, and it was just, and I'm the one getting all these letters and all the calls, right? And so I'm telling my partner, come on, we gotta go down there. Oh, I can't make it today. I just can't do that. So we gotta go down, so I just go down and take care of it. But I work full time too, so it's not like I have the luxury of just going down there at any one time. But so eventually I said, look, I can't afford to do this anymore. It's killing me. It's stressing me out at work. It's causing me trouble at work. I need to sell the apartment. So we agreed on a price, and we got the real estate guy who helped us buy it, came back into the scene and helped us sell it. So, but it took a couple of years to sell it too.
It took 2 years to sell it.
Yeah.
Wow.
See, commercial real estate is a business, okay? So when you own 5 units and up, it's
So
another
that's
job.
what you consider a commercial.
Commercial's
property.
5 units and more.
Different type of loan too.
That's the definition.
4
5 unit, 1 to 4 is a residential. That's why the easiest thing to manage and rent is a single family. When you live in a single family?
I did.
Okay, but do you rent, does anybody here rent a single
Yeah,
family?
actually, it was an interesting deal, if you don't mind me.
No.
All right, so what it was is it's a 1,100 square foot home that had another addition built onto it, so it ended up being about 1,500 square feet. And then behind that was a garage that was converted into an apartment unit, and then, which was unpermitted.
Right,
And then,
most of them are.
and then we built a second, I built an office, which is what I want to talk to you
This
about.
is
It's
your
like,
property that
can't-
you own.
Yes, the one that I owned with my ex.
Right,
And then we built a 20 by 10 foot square office back there with a bathroom in there. So we rented out the garage.
Right.
It paid the mortgage on the house. We
Right.
bought the house for $200,000. And the mortgage was $1,300 or $1,350, not including the land, the taxes. And we rented out the apartment for $900. And boom, how bad can that be? So it was a fantastic situation.
Exactly.
It was great. And then when we got divorced, none of it was permitted, so none of that was kind of went into my pocket, right? And all of it was kind of just, so,
Yeah.
Did I answer your question?
Yeah, but you can say.
Can I go cry a little bit right now?
No.
You could, but don't.
But you can see that was a good thing to own, a house with a guest unit or a duplex or something where your situation where you pay very little money to live there. I'm all about staying small. I call it staying small to live large. So the less I have to pay every month for my mortgage, if someone else is doing it for me, or the rents from that building, my positive is paying my mortgage and everything else, I'm
Yeah.
I can practically coast right now, but I don't have a big lifestyle.
In 2001 for 200, and now it's worth 730.
Right, and it will always, even if you bought at the top of the market, this is why, for me, buy and hold, I don't care. I don't care if my building is worth $1. As long as it's giving me that $10,000 a month in rent, what do I care what it's worth? It's an ATM machine. Real estate is an ATM machine.
So
It'll
you
spit
differ
out
with
money.
Leslie though, because
Yeah.
Leslie's kind of all about the equity. Let's build the equity. It doesn't matter if please correct me if I'm wrong. You're kind of about let's build the equity in that thing, and then we'll take that equity out and go. So it doesn't matter so much to you if you're making cash on it or
Well, I'm
not,
always-
and you're more into cash.
She's more using it as a business. This is her business. This is what she does for a living.
All of my buildings cash flow, even when they're leveraged. They cash flow from the day I bought them.
Right.
They cash flow every time I refinance. So I'm all about cash flow. I just have built a portfolio. I've gone bigger than what she's talking about. I basically was building my portfolio when things crashed, kind of in the middle of it, and all of a sudden didn't have the income. So I'm like, I better buy another building. I better buy another building. And so
Right.
now I build
But she had the money to do it.
Yeah, right.
And
Right, that's
because
the
I
difference.
refinance.
That's unusual, because
Right.
most people that come to me don't have, $1 million to come in and say, if you've got $1 million or $2 million, you can buy yourself a cash flow on one building or 10 buildings, and then you could just sit there and live with it
But
and
you can-
leverage and do all
Right,
that.
but
But
you
a
can-
lot of people have jobs.
Right, but you can buy a building that cash flows in Long Beach or so for $800 or $1 million. So you need 200,000 to 300,000 maybe to get into a separate building that you don't even have to live in that could cash flow. So it doesn't take millions. You can buy your first building, like her building in Long Beach when she bought it, and all my little 7 and 8 unit buildings. Not all, I have 5. I bought them and they were all cash flow.
I mean, I
So-
paid $25,000 to buy a duplex in North Hollywood back in the day.
Right.
Yeah.
So I mean, it wasn't, but things are more expensive now. But even if I got 500 on this one and 1,000 on that one, and I wasn't living on, $3,000 a month in cash flow. So how much do you need to create? See, it's all personal. How much do you need to create in cash flow to live? My whole thing has always been about retirement. Soon as I make enough money cash flow, I'm done working, right? That was my thing. Wasn't, and it was done slowly over time.
Right.
And then I took a big step back with the building in Dallas that I lost a lot of money on, but that's okay. I still have, even if I never bought anything else again, if my house is paid off and I'm living completely for free and getting rent from the guy in the back, and I'm getting $15,000 a month from these people down in Long Beach, what else I don't have to worry about anything.
That's correct.
But no, I'm not making $300,000 a year, but if I buy.
How much do you need?
That's what I'm saying. I'm not a
Yeah.
big, I don't live big. I don't live big, so I don't
if you have
really,
children and stuff like that, like that's part of
right.
your consideration.
Right, so everybody's situation is different. If you're like, I've got $500,000 and I want to quit my job, so I want to start trading up, and then Leslie's philosophy is, but I've not met a lot of people, at least the people who come to me for loans, who have that chunk of change.
Right.
Now, my neighbor just came to me and they have $250,000 that's sitting in the bank that they want to do something with.
So I just want to say too, Gallo, who's been coming to our meetings, he bought his first duplex 4 years ago. He's come in here and spoken about it. He bought it in a rent controlled area. It still went up. He just counted the days till he could refinance it. He just closed today on another duplex in Ventura. He's thrilled. He just texted, said, I've got 2 properties in 4 years I bought.
Yeah,
So-
but he's been the beneficiary of a huge swing in the prices. And so that's the thing that you can't always count on here.
Yes.
If you catch it at the right time, yeah, wow, aren't I a genius? I just made $1 million. Well, I'm not. I just was riding the right wave. But you know what I mean? So you've got to be. That's why if you do it in a place that doesn't have these wild swings in equity and value, it's a different ballgame. But here, I don't know. I don't think it's at the top, but it's definitely
Well, when you
getting
hear
really.
like the Chinese or the middle class. If you think about the middle class in China of a billion people, a middle class is an enormous chunk of people that have money. You know what I mean? So do you think about this kind of thing? Do you think like is LA ever gonna not be like heading up? Is it gonna be like
Well,
Vancouver or San Francisco where it's just like people want to live in LA and if they have money,
Yes.
they're gonna do it?
The thing about California is if you can buy real estate here, forget about every place else. You just want to buy it here because it's like a piece of gold.
Because
From your building that you own in Venice, the more you can buy, you forget about every place else because everybody wants to live here and we have constraints to land. We have the ocean on one side. We have a lot of government land in California. We have mountains. There's a lot of constriction here. So
only so much space.
there's only so much space and there's a ton of people who all want to live here. And it'll swing. People will move out because it gets too expensive and then they'll come back. So you'll have vacancies and people will come back. But then you got to move around in other parts of LA. You got to go to Hawthorne. You got to go to mid cities. You got to go downtown. You have to go to Long Beach. You can't buy in Santa Monica. Huh?
Big city's lovely.
Yeah, it's a hot area now.
I was gonna say that.
Yeah.
After going to your place in Hawthorne.
Yeah.
That really inspired me, and so I actually started driving around and really checking out the area. And I'm not from California. I'm from the Midwest, and when I moved out here, I'm telling you, I've been here 20 years and I've been to Hawthorne once. And going down there, it's actually a stone's throw from El Segundo, which I love that area. And
Exactly.
I couldn't believe how close it was, and I could feel the breeze of the ocean over there. And I'm like, oh my God, this is actually a really nice place.
It's smart.
And I'd
But
never
that's
even
what
heard
you
of
have to do.
Hawthorne
You can get
before
your
I
car and
was
drive
there.
around and look
And I
at these
live in
areas.
West Adams in Mid City.
Right.
Like I'm a Mid City girl, so
Right.
it doesn't bother me. I've never been to Santa Monica,
Right.
the beach city kind of thing. So I'm cool with
Right.
trying to find in that area. Has plenty of duplexes
Right.
and little houses and stuff. But the thing about it is that now it's being gentrified. I mean,
Right.
it's crazy.
Right.
It's mind blowing.
Right.
Over there that
Right.
little houses are
Yeah.
being flipped for $700,000.
That's why then maybe you got to go south of downtown now. You know what I mean? It's like you got to find. Right. You just got to find what's in your price
Or you
range.
just start looking with an agent like he did. He said, Long Beach, Hawthorne, down, you tell me, let's look. He was totally open to going where the deal was and where he found something.
Right.
And he wanted it ideally as close to Santa Monica as possible, which
Yeah.
you found,
And-
which is fabulous.
And Rick was
Great
really,
location.
really helpful. And, you go to some places and kind of like in these meetings, you hear Leslie talking about it. You're going to hear him say, oh, this is downside of this is upside of this, turnover. This one has singles. You could get a lot of turnover. You start to hear all these things. And so after a while, I started to realize that the good deals, they were obviously good deals, and we would just get in a bidding war and we would lose. And that happened twice. And so I stopped looking for the obvious good deals and the things that looked for things that weren't obvious. And
Value added, something you could add.
Right.
yeah.
How's your renovation going?
Great.
Did you add a legal third unit?
No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll make
No, it's
it.
all right. I mean, listen, all of LA is, I don't think my guest house that was built with the property, I don't think it's legal, but now they're going to start allowing you, So
Some of
it's
that's
there, it
agreement.
was built there, but technically it's not a legal rental unless, my property was zoned R2, then it would be a legal rental, but it's technically not a legal rental.
Yeah, and there's a property
Did you
right
get
next
a
door to
lease
ours that's the
tenant?
same lot size that has, I think, 8 units, and ours just had 2 on the same size lot. So it doesn't look out of place at all, and it looks even like the floor plan was meant for it because we did nothing to the outside, and it was just kind of just put up a wall and others
Yeah.
do.
All I would just say is like, is that for people who are, if anyone's listening, you know, who don't own and you can't afford in your area where you live, you've got to move someplace else to get started. That's how everybody gets started.
What if you like me, okay, my ex lives in the house, I live a block away in an apartment which I quote unquote manage, and I mean that in the loosest terms, you know,
Right.
and they pay me a little bit of money, and
Right.
I pay my rent on this place, it's a 16-unit place, and, you know, I am committed to being close to my kids until they graduate.
And
so
where is
the Eagle Rock.
Eagle Rock.
So that's 5 years. And so is it possible to do something like, you know, get a place and have one of those places be an office space or something like that, or a small thing, or
Yeah.
some kind of.
As long as you
accommodation.
move, so let's say you bought someplace that was affordable, a 2-unit, right? FHA, 3.5% down. And if you, I don't know, you can maybe afford to leave one of them vacant?
Probably not. I'd probably try and like figure some way of tweaking it so that
Get a
there's
roommate.
third space.
All you gotta be, see,
'Cause I just-
here's the thing, you're signing federal papers saying, I am going to live in this property, and that's why they're letting you do 3.5% down. People were very loose about it before, people in my business would say, don't worry about it, don't worry about it. I'm always saying, worry about it.
Mhm.
Because you're gonna get a phone call saying, we went and we knocked on the door and we asked the other tenant and you don't live there, we want our money back, you got 60 days to give us back the money.
I see.
And they do
So-
that today.
It seems
So-
to me that you would have a home in your new location and an office at the place you manage.
I mean,
That
I mean,
sounds reasonable to me. Does that
yeah, I mean,
sound
as long as you
reasonable to
live there, I would say for 6-8 months till things have smoothed over, and all of a sudden if you get a phone call saying, why don't you live there anymore? And you say, well, my kids were having trouble, I moved away, and now they were freaking out, and so I had to move back.
you? I see.
Well, is there?
That's understandable. You say, I lived there, here are my utility
Right.
bills, I moved in, and I thought it was gonna be okay for my children, and it wasn't, so I moved back. In the off chance that you got a phone call. 99% of the time you're not, but I would say do it and move in for 8 months and then move back.
Is there a time period, was it 2 years or something that you have? to
There's
live in?
no, it just says, it says within, you're saying I intend to occupy within 60 days when you sign the
Right, but
closing.
there's no
No,
occupy for a
No.
year or occupy.
And it has to be
No.
realistic
it's
too.
just realistic, but if they came to you in your situation, you're like, here's my situation. Here's where my kids, I used to live here, it didn't work out. My kids started, doing something crazy and he was in therapy and, blah, blah, blah. That's completely understandable. That would be my story.
So I'm thinking about what you guys are talking about. Is there something where you're gonna get either an owner occupied rate or you're gonna get an investment loan?
It's not that much higher.
But
for
if
investment,
you
right?
say you're owner occupied, like I thought that I heard, you can, if you occupy it for a year, then you can put it into
You can do
the
it.
rental market
Sure.
without having an issue.
The only thing that would ever
Maybe
tip off a
that's what
lender
you're
that you
thinking of.
moved out is the insurance policy. So the insurance policy changes to a rental and they get the insurance policy if someone puts 2 and 2 together in the insurance department. And they see, wait a minute, this lady just bought this place and now she doesn't live there anymore. It's not a big difference in rate to get into that.
Mhm.
I wouldn't personally do it. If I was buying something as a rental, I'd buy it as a rental. I don't get into saying I'm gonna live there when I'm not.
The other thing is they can sometimes question it. Like
No.
they'll say, it's not
They do not.
realistic. You make this much per year. You're not moving to South Central Leslie Smith.
Yeah,
Or
I'll
something.
tell
They'll
you.
sometimes not, they
I
just
will
won't
tell you
believe
up front, they're not gonna believe you.
Right. So-
When people come to me and say, oh, we're gonna move into this 4-unit, and I'm like, yeah, well, you have a single family in Sherman Oaks. They're never gonna buy that you're living in a 4-unit in,
Right,
Hoffman.
I see what
it's
you're
not gonna
saying.
work. Just
Leslie
fess
said
up,
that.
put the money down and pay the rate, and it's, instead of 3.5, it's 3,875, and it still cash flows, and they're like, oh, I
And
know
you're
it's-
legal.
Yeah, if you
Yeah.
can put that much down, then do it because, it's a better rate,
Yeah,
but
better
it's
cash
not
flow.
because you're paying essentially an extra percent
Yeah.
for that
Mortgage
mortgage
insurance.
insurance.
Mhm.
So it is better not to pay mortgage
Yeah.
insurance.
The bottom line is, if you're buying a rental, you gotta put 20% down or more, 20 or 25.
Right.
That's it. That's just it.
Yeah,
Consider by putting 20% down, that's less of a mortgage you'll pay over time. too.
Exactly.
Then it's 20% less you have to borrow.
Yeah, it's not worth breaking the law to try to save a couple pennies,
Exactly.
you know, and then looking over your shoulder, worried about, I'll tell people, I can't do the loan. If I know it's, because I have a license, I'm like, I can't do your loan. I know you're not living there, I don't want this on my hands, my name was on that loan for forever, I'm not doing it.
Do you work
So-
with, I'm sorry, do you
No,
work
go
with any loans, what is it, the home style or the 2, 3K, where you can sort
That's
of
a special-
fold into
Yeah, that's a
your
specialty, it's
renovations?
very hard to do now, because no seller is gonna wait for you to get, FHA 203K is when you can buy a house and they'll lend you money to fix up the house as well, but you have to have plans and specs, and you gotta get an architect and people in there, and no seller today is waiting for you to do all that. Do you know what I mean? You need 60 days to get your costs and your contractor's bids, and the seller wants to sell the property and be done. They're not gonna wait around unless usually that happens in a slow market or an area where it takes people a long time to sell a house.
So if we did find a property though that they were willing to do that, do you
Yeah,
do
there's-
those type of?
I don't,
loans?
there's special people who are licensed to do those specific loans.
So you have to.
Yeah.
So it's 8:20, which is, so we'll go till, 8:30, but I just wondered if there's any words of wisdom you sort of want to close with.
That's just, I would just say, like you were saying, noticing a difference in philosophy or whatnot. Mine is just from the amount of people I've talked to, be willing to move where you have to move in California to get into the real estate. You have to understand that it's going to go up and it's going to go down. And you just have to hold on to it, because my philosophy is you want to pay it off. And then when you're retired, you've got 1, 2, 3 of these properties. Each of them's worth $1 million now. I can't save and invest my money to create that kind of money. And then in addition to that, it's an ATM machine that gives me cash flow.
Yeah, and I'm hearing more commonalities than differences, because I'm hearing buy and hold.
Buy and
You
hold.
gotta have cash flow from the get-go.
Yes.
And grow, don't show, live small.
Yeah, right.
And so I hear that from both of you. It's just a difference of whether you use
Leverage.
more leverage or less.
Right.
And I can say my argument for having a mortgage is that I go back, and the ATM is I pull out $100,000 from the building. Like, I just pulled out a lot of money to do to rebuild the house in Laguna. So it's literally an ATM for hundreds of thousands of dollars that I pull out and do the leverage higher. I also do that. My mentor had said to me, I don't ever want anything paid off, because if something happens to that building, you lost everything. If there's an earthquake in Venice and this place topples, I only lost my $700,000 in equity. I didn't lose the $2,700,000 because I didn't have it all paid off. So his thing is, he doesn't like all your money with the building paid off. So he says refinance. Always, he says too, before you go into a down market, refinance. Totally counterintuitive. Pull the cash out. It's safer in your hands in a down market than it is in the bank.
Then
And
you
in a
can
down
buy at the
market,
bottom.
you can't get it. You can't get the money when the market goes down. So those are some reasons why, or how I use it as an ATM. But she's right. It just kicks off the cash.
In my perspective, because I looked into loans, is also to leverage a lot. Like, not so much that you do the mortgage insurance. I would really just do the mortgage insurance if you, just to get started. If you don't have enough to put down, then definitely get started.
Absolutely.
Do the 3.5 down, get started. But I did a 30-year fixed, and I even paid quite a bit of money to get a lower rate.
You bought points.
I bought points, and that's because I looked at the 40-year history of rates in the market, and it's just drop, and it has nowhere to go but up. And I can't know, it could just stay low, but I figure, that's a really good investment to pay that down. And for 30 years, I have this really, really low rate.
Exactly.
And then, she would just go for like a shorter term, like an adjustable rate that's only fixed for a few years. But I don't want to take the risk that in those few years, the rate goes up.
But I would then will wonder, when his building, it's already worth about $100,000 more than he bought it. Yeah, 100 more than what he
That's
bought
LA,
it. Okay,
yeah.
so I would wonder in two years, well, Gallo just took his 100 out and bought another place. So Gallo really quickly refinanced his duplex he'd owned for 3.5 years or 4 years, and now has bought a second duplex. So
Is he doing an FHA if you don't mind?
Don't know. I don't know. We'll ask him next time. But I would say, but this is what I wonder with Kevin with that philosophy is in 2 or 3 years when he has 200,000 in his building or 300, get that out and go buy another building.
That's not a given. We could go backwards,
We
right?
could.
You
We
could end up
could.
with 300 and then it could go back to square one. So
Yeah,
you don't know that that's what's going to happen because we are approaching,
but in long term,
you know,
you know
a
that
flattening here.
it's gonna
Of
go up.
course.
It will be.
In the
of course.
30-year length of the
We
loan,
are.
it's going up by a lot.
Yeah.
It's tough to say because,
Well, if their interest rates are gonna start rising.
it's
After
tough to
the
say
Fed's-
because of
after
the foreign
election, they're
money.
gonna start
There's
going up,
no
right?
way to know anymore because of all the Chinese money that comes in
Yeah,
here
there
that buys. There's this guy, there's this guy, John Burns, who's a real estate consultant and and he went on TV and he's like, if you're a regular buyer in California, you're screwed. He's like, because you're competing with people from China who have tons of cash.
I'll tell you, the investor who,
And so you're not competing against people who live here, teachers and doctors.
I
but-
know, I agree.
the investor who approached me as a doctor from New York was looking into purchasing in New York City with a very good income in New York, but they said, I can afford to buy a place, but I can't afford an HOA.
Mhm.
I have $500,000 I need to put somewhere safely.
Right.
Is in LA looking at places and said, I called the real estate agent, it's listed on Monday, I called to see it Wednesday morning, it's already sold.
But again, this too will end. It's all cyclical. So yes, we're riding a wave right now where it's going up, but it's going to flatten out. It might dip again. It's all depends on the economy. So you have to understand that, yeah, maybe while I can make a ton of money right now and I got lucky and I bought at the right time and I just made $100,000, it doesn't always work that way. And to me,
Yeah.
that's the big mistake that everybody made last time, thinking, hey, this is how real estate works. You just buy something and it goes up $500,000. But then they learned quickly it doesn't.
So
But that's your
I-
sustaining when it
Yeah.
goes down.
Yes, so
I
that's
bought
why
with the
if you buy
assumption that it could be
safely,
the top of the
Exactly.
market, and it had to cash flow. from the
exactly.
beginning.
If you
And-
buy safely like that on a rate like you have now, you're okay.
Yeah.
But to think that it's
And then when
always
it
going to
does
shoot
appreciate,
up.
I can take out a second. I don't refi because I have this crazy low rate. I take out a second mortgage on the place.
Yeah, there's many ways to do it, but I guess again, it's kind of the ATM. He would pull cash out to go get another property. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
or
I will.
with like what Sandy did, she had enough to go buy something.
Yeah, I just had a job that I would just save my money, and everyone used to make fun of me that I lived in Van Nuys. Like, why do you live in Van Nuys? And I'm like, because I spend my money buying property.
Yeah.
So you're a loan broker,
Mhm.
and do you also do private lending? Do you lend your own money?
No, what a mortgage broker is I've worked for all the banks, and when I worked at Washington Mutual, I was a wholesale rep. So I was the liaison between the bank, B of A or Washington Mutual, and mortgage brokers. So a mortgage broker would call me and say, hey, I have this guy and his wife, they want to buy a house for the first time, 3.5% down, but he's got this little thing, can you guys do it? And I'd say, yeah, send it in, we'll do it. And so that's what a broker does is I'll take anybody's loan
Mhm.
and I shop,
You source it.
I source it. It's like an insurance broker.
So you're a
Same
broker
thing.
right now.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah, because I've worked for individual lenders, but the problem is when you work for one lender
You
and
can
they
only
can't
live
do
there.
it,
Yeah.
I'm like, I
Yeah.
can't help you.
Yeah.
And what's your sweet spot? Like,
And it doesn't matter. I don't do
but you
commercial.
said like she was asking about a particular.
Oh,
you
well,
don't
that's a
do commercial.
specific thing. No,
Okay.
I mean, I could, but it's not my expertise. And to be honest, Chase has like the most sweet rate there is and the most sweet deal for commercial, so I just send people to Chase.
So you do 4 and under.
One
You
to
don't
fours.
even do this.
And if I
small
can't do it, I always tell people where they can go to get it. I'm
Hmm.
like, you know what? You need private money or you need this, and I got this private money guy, but this guy over here will probably do it for you or, whatever. Because I know so many people in the business having done it for so long here that I can't just send somebody away and say, can't help you. I hate that.
Good luck, right?
Yeah, good luck.
See ya.
Figure it out on your
Right,
own,
bye-bye.
And it's like, they can't figure it out. They need you to help them. So, but that's a special product that she was talking about. And it used to be that we could do it, but then they made it a special thing that you have to, not a license, but a
Okay.
special
Yeah.
thing that you have to have to
Yeah,
do
because
that.
it's tons of paperwork.
It is, but that's the
Tons of-
problem is no one here was ever willing to wait for somebody to do it Now, when the market slows down, maybe people will be willing to wait for you to do
Or
that.
other states.
Hot
Right,
right now?
I don't know, huh?
I don't know, it's hot right now, I take it.
Yeah, but as long as something, again, as long as something cash flows or you can afford the payment. See, what's different now is they're not lending to people who can't afford the payment. So if you come to me and you tell me I make $100,000 a year and we qualify you and you are comfortable with that payment, the bank's going to lend it to you, barring that you don't lose your job. If your property goes down in value, you have to have a place to live. And it's probably the same as rent now to buy. Depends on what you buy.
But when you have like a duplex or they know you're gonna have rental income, do they include that
Yes,
still?
absolutely.
Yes.
It's easier to qualify for a duplex
Right.
because they give you 75% of the rent from the duplex.
Okay. So we've been on for an hour and a half now, so anything for closing?
No, if anybody listening or anybody here, if you have any questions, just call me. I'm happy to run like in San Francisco or Oakland, whatever the numbers are for somebody, that's not a problem.
Great.
It's for you, David.
Good, we'll put you on the website so you can,
Yeah.
on the Facebook page, so people know how to get in touch with you.
And just, that's it. It's all, a personal decision, with
And I
what
have
you
a
wanna.
tip for looking, like, none of these searches do filters properly. The data's all wrong for rent control. They don't mark it properly. And there's all these combination of things like after 1978
Right.
and in the city of LA, but nobody actually knows what the city of LA is. So you have to be really careful that where you are and all this stuff. But if you just do a radius and price range search, you'll have like whatever it is, 500 results. And it sounds overwhelming, but with your criteria, non-rent controlled, and if you know what that is, that if it's after 19